Okay, we've started. Have we started? Yes, we have. 10 seconds in. Come on, Paul. Get a wiggle on. So this is a quick video to answer a question someone posted in the comments section for my previous video on COVID vaccines. Julie asked if we should be worried over how adequately tested the COVID vaccines have been. You know, has it been done too quickly? Have they tested enough? I'll give you my answer in this video. Why I'm negative about positive
Back to the story, because I've got a story.
So I've got some top tips on
I
writing
encourage you to think
elaborate.
critically. It helps people like me stop doing stupid things.
So Julie asked the question a couple of weeks ago, and I'm a bit late in replying because my house got broken into. Someone stole my camera gear, so that's really thrown me a bit, and I'll tell you more about that maybe at another time. But let's get on with answering Julie's question. It's a really important question. Did the COVID vaccine get approved in haste, and should that make us concerned if it did? It's a question that's on a lot of people's minds. Now, the testing and the approval process was fast-tracked, but there is some reason to be somewhat confident about it all, particularly the approval part. That's because, though the testing of the drug is mostly undertaken by drug manufacturers, the data from those tests are submitted to the drug regulator, a regulating body, which is usually a public sector institution, usually a branch of government. Now, drug regulation is not in the hands of private companies, so there is hope that public health will be more likely put ahead of profit by a public institution. Though, of course, it's not as clear cut as that. But before I get into that, my answer to the question is yes, we should be able to trust the regulator that they've done their job properly when licensing the vaccines for use. So we should be pretty confident that the drugs are safe and effective, and we shouldn't have to worry too much about how quickly it's all happened. Now, when I say it's not clear cut, what I'm thinking about is a particular example from the UK. When I was in the UK, which was up until 2012, I worked with patient groups who were campaigning for better drug safety. The drug regulator in the UK was the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, the MHRA. And I got to know the MHRA reasonably well when I was in the UK, and I had a few disappointing encounters with them, which I must tell you about on another day, but I partly talk about it in a video on my channel called, the actual title of the presentation is called Studying Up. Anyway, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. I'll put a link up in the description box. Now, what I'm going to do is focus on the MHRA, not just because I know most about them, but also because they were the first drug regulator to approve a COVID vaccine. So if anyone moved too fast, they would have moved too fast. The MHRA is a public body. It's an executive branch of government. And one of its main responsibilities is to regulate medicines by granting or withholding licenses for their use. Now, here's the nutshell. The part of the MHRA that does this is wholly funded from fees paid by drug companies. So what happens is the drug company develops a new drug, they run some trials on it to see if it works and to see if it's safe, and if the drug works and it's safe, they submit the trial data to the drug regulator and ask the drug regulator to give them a license so that it can be sold for use. And the MHRA are supposed to scrutinize the data, and if the data does indeed show the drug is safe and effective, they would grant the license. And the drug company pays the MHRA a fee to do all of that. Basically, the MHRA is not independent of drug companies. It's funded by the drug companies. And if that sounds a bit dodgy, well, you'd be right. You'd be right. If you think it's dodgy, yeah, it's dodgy. And it's not just me thinking that, and if you thought that, it's not just you thinking that. The MHRA has been continually criticised for working too closely with industry. It's also been criticised for its lack of transparency. It wouldn't actually show anyone else the data that the drug companies had given it. And the regulator would say that the data was commercially sensitive. Worse, they were criticised for sometimes not scrutinising the data at all. but just taking it on trust. The drug company would send the data in and say, the drug shows the drug is safe and effective, and the MHRA would kind of say, okay, cool, we trust you. We don't really need to look at the data. We'll just take your word for it. Now, the problem is the drug company has a massive financial interest in the drug getting licensed because they've spent a lot of money developing the drug and testing the drug. And if the drug gets licensed, they're going to recoup that money and actually they're going to make a really nice profit on that drug being sold. Now, in 2005, the MHRA was criticised by the House of Commons Health Committee in the UK for, among other things, its lack of transparency and for inadequately checking drug licensing data. And it's been broadly criticised for putting the interests of the drug industry ahead of public safety. The MHRA has defended fee payments from the industry, stating that there was no problem with an independent body that was tasked with regulating an industry being paid to do so by the industry. They didn't think it was a problem. Most other people think it's a problem. And the MHRA has also worked in partnership with the drug industry in relation to lobbying government on drug-related policies. So the MHRA has defended that by saying it was important to have a good, close relationship with the drug industry so that it could understand their needs. Now, there's lots and lots to worry about there. But is there another reason why the MHRA works so closely with the drug industry in the UK? Well, yes. The MHRA, being an executive branch of the government, is actually housed in the Department of Health, and it has to meet the obligations and responsibilities of the Department of Health. And one of the responsibilities of the Department of Health, and this is really nuts, is to promote the interests of the UK drug industry. It's nuts because that should be the responsibility of the department that oversees policies on trade and industry, the department that looks after industry. Now, why does the Department of Health have the responsibility for looking after the UK drug industry? Well, largely because that's what the drug industry has lobbied for. And the reason they've lobbied for that is that it gives them direct access to decision making related to the UK national health system, such as the purchasing of drugs and medical devices. It gives them access to the decision makers who sign off on multi-million-pound contracts for drug purchasing. So this is part of a more general problem. Public institutions that are owned by us, citizens, paid for by us through general taxation. Well, these institutions have increasingly entered into industry partnerships to the point at which the interests of industry figure large in the activities of those public institutions. This is often captured in that notion of public-private partnerships. And these partnerships are built on a belief that public institutions in the private sector can work relatively effortlessly together to promote the public interest. And when it comes to the healthcare sector, instilled in this approach is a belief that the interests of public health are coherent with the promotion of the private healthcare sector. But we know this isn't true. For one, the primary directive of private industry is to act in the best interests of their specific shareholders, and that typically means to increase shareholder dividends or to maximize the company's profits. The promotion of public health has to be secondary to that. If a company doesn't act primarily in the interests of its shareholders by increasing the value of their shares, the board of directors and the chief executive officer can be sacked, and in some instances they can be subject to litigation for not fulfilling their obligations to their shareholders. So, as with what drug companies have done in the past that I talked about in the previous video, the drug regulators, well, at least one in the UK, has also given us reason not to be awfully trusting of them. They've made us cautious about trusting them because it's not clear that they are always going to put public health and the public interest before the pecuniary interests of, say, the drug industry. And when it comes to whether we can trust the drug regulators when they license the COVID vaccines, well, we should be okay. Like, I wasn't lying to you when I said things should be okay here, because it's got so much attention on it. You know, the whole world is looking at this stuff, and it's affecting the whole world. So the attention on the regulators and the drug industry is intense. So if they do stuff up, if they do get a little bit corrupt, we'll all know about it, and the penalties against them will be really harsh. But the thing is, they should never have put ourselves in the position for us to doubt them. They should never have put us in that position. Okay, so go get vaccinated when the vaccines arrive. I'm sure it'll be fine. But my God, why did they put us in the position where it makes it difficult to trust them? Okay, that's all for now. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Ta-da.